and welcome to another special episode of In Conversation with CM Today magazine. Now, we're currently constantly talking about the challenges one faces in the service industry today, especially with the pandemic amidst us, but we often forget to mention about the opportunities that also arise and also the role or the importance that the FM industry need to give to the tenant-client experience. Now, recently, there was a buzz in the industry about how Quality Group reduced the customer escalation by 85% and improved their staff productivity and gained a portfolio-wide visibility into their facility operations by using the Facilio platform, which is why we felt who better to talk about this entire shift in the service industry than my two guests here today. So welcome Mr. Prabhu Ramchandran, the CEO and founder of Facilio Inc., and Mr. Sumith Sukumaran, the Operations Manager of Quality Group, UAE. Welcome, both of you.
Thank you. Thank you, Megha.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you again. So to start off with, Mr. Sumith, I would like to address the first question to you. So what are the changes that are happening in the FM industry, especially in the last few months? And if you can elaborate on some of the challenges and especially the opportunities as well.
Yeah, I hope all of us are, aware about what has happened in the past maybe 6-7 months.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's not something very familiar to most of us, right? I mean, the entire industry, I mean, not just FM, but across the world, the entire industries have gone through a very uncertain period where the expectations of the customers have changed in a very tremendous manner, and that actually impacted quite well in the FM side as well. Particularly when we are talking about a pandemic like this, the first thing everyone as an end user would look into will be the hygiene and safety of the built environment that they will be coming in, like, or they will be visiting. So being an FM service provider with a versatile portfolio of residential and commercial facilities, we had to make sure that all our tenants, all our visitors, all our staff were in the field. Are safe. That could be the most important thing we as a service provider has to make sure, right? And safety and hygiene was the most important thing that everyone across the board was insisting on. Then we had to, based on those requirements, based on those needs, we had to amend our SOPs in a way that the operations or the regular activities of all these open facilities. I mean, see, some of our commercial facilities were closed based on the government regulations, but then those facilities that were open, that were functioning with the restrictions in place, all those had to be functioning in a way that the latest developments in the industry, the latest developments based on the health authorities' instructions, all had to be followed. So we had a major shift in the SOPs that were already in place. We had implemented those because the timeline was also not very clear, because most of us were not sure about what exactly was going to happen. I mean, I'm sure most of us would not have expected that we would be in a lockdown situation for months, or we would be in a very restricted movement mode for months. I mean, I don't think that anybody would have anticipated that. So that created a lot of difficulties in front of us, in order to just, because any SOP, any procedures that we needed to amend or we needed to implement would always have a timeline to it. What would be the duration? What would be the next step? So most of us were not really aware about what would be the timeline, which was the biggest challenge. But still, life has to move on. We have to overcome all these challenges, and we have to get it done. So then, when we have a problem with the limited movement of people or restricted movement of people, that would definitely impact our service team size as well. So let's say if we have 100 men deployed on a specific area, and the government or the health authorities insist that no, we cannot really have all these people moving around in these facilities. We have to have restrictions in certain areas based on the safety or all the standards that locally as well as internationally has to be followed. That would affect our service delivery capability as well. Right, when less men on board, less people on board, obviously that would directly impact. So we had to find out methods to ensure that the service delivery was not impacted. There was no visible changes at the field level, even though there were lesser men or lesser people on board. So for that, we definitely had to rely on technology, rely on our agility on how we are going to modify our daily operations during the pandemic, particularly.
That's right. And Mr. Prabhu, would you like to add to that?
Yes, picking up on Sumit's point, last few months have been like really challenging for the FM industry. The immediate challenges are, of course, reduced business. The facilities are not being open, like malls and offices. So that impacts the business for FM companies. And from a mid to long term, the challenges are the responsibilities for FM companies have increased, where there is a lot more emphasis on health and wellness of occupants, which means they have to train their staff, they have to bring in whatever tech they want, get trained, deploy that at scale. And the next challenge is there is more emphasis on operational efficiency for real estate owners, wherein FM have to play a major role in making sure their operations is highly efficient. So these are challenges where FMs have to really staff have train, upskill their workforce to meet these. But having said that, the opportunities that are opening up once we cross the difficult path, the huge opportunity that is opening up is FM as a business unit has become a very, very critical component of real estate post-pandemic, where it has moved from more of a tactical component to a strategic business partner. Earlier, usually the model is it could be like lowest bidder, or it was becoming a commodity. But now real estate owners are looking FM companies as partners. So there is huge focus spotlight on facility management itself. Even if you look at visuals of COVID coverages in news, one side you see the medical staffs with PPEs being shown. Equally, we are seeing buildings where facility staffs are going and maintaining, cleaning, sanitizing. So that is a level of, so that is an opportunity, I would say, for FM companies where they are becoming more important. There is a lot more mind share, and the FM companies that grab these opportunities, adopt themselves and evolve are going to win. Couple of aspects where is one is how can they bring agility into operations. That is one component where they're going to focus a lot. And of course, the next one is how can they quickly bring in tech beyond regular things like FM and other stuff, but how can they bring in innovation with tech so that they stay relevant, they come and create huge impact in the real estate owner's business.
That's right. It's interesting that you should say that, because my next question again to both of you would be, what do you think are some of the benefits of deploying these digital solutions and, the data-driven service delivery modules in addressing this current or even future challenges? Mr. Sumith, if you would like to.
Yeah, exactly like how Prabhu said, deploying technology on all these areas would be the only solution, especially, way forward, like when all the investors, all the clients look at ensuring that their expenses on the upkeep of all these facilities are minimized and the efficiency is maximized. See, when we need to deploy manual services for all these, the FM industry has different or a lot of variable elements on a daily operation. Okay, so deploying manual services or deploying manual efforts to cater those requirements doesn't sound like a sensible idea anymore. I'm sure not just in the FM industry, but across other industries as well. Everybody is looking at trying to digitize all these processes and probably let the computers do all the repetitive processes, so that human efforts or intelligence could be deployed on something that computers cannot do as of now. You get what I'm saying? So FM industry has a great need of those kind of initiatives, particularly because of the agility that we were talking about in the previous question, right? So yeah, when we deploy the digital tools, when we deploy the usable digital tools, I would like to reiterate on that, because there are a lot of digital tools available in the market that claim to do a lot of things. But when we actually look at it, the actual usage of a digital tool on what kind of process that is going to be digitized, I guess 50 to 60% of those tools will be useless, because it might require our process to be totally revamped based on that tool's functionality, and it in a way is hampering the overall operations of a business unit, right? So yeah, when we use the right kind of digital tools and when we deploy them at the field, at the management level, we could really get real-time insights to what is exactly happening at a certain period of time. So during the lockdown phase, where the offices were not functioning completely, we were not feeling that pain much. Why? Because while we were working from home, we knew exactly what was happening at the field on our mobile screen or on our computer, and we could predict if something was going to be messed up, I would say, looking at those dashboards, I would say, because it was just before the COVID lockdowns and all, we just migrated to a digital platform. And when the lockdown started, when we were looking at all the operational procedures and how it was happening on a real-time basis, we did not have to really dig out a lot of data every time just to understand that. We could probably have them already available at our fingertips. So that was really helpful for us to ensure a smoother operation and focus ourselves on something else, or something that could mitigate the impacts of businesses due to this pandemic, right? Yeah. So let the computers do what they could do their best, and let us focus on something that could bring in more value to the organization. And this is what I always try to achieve by the word digitization. So I do not try to digitize anything just for the sake of digitizing, because everybody is behind, okay, let's digitize it, let's go paperless, let's do this, let's do that. Yeah. But end of the day, you really need to understand what you actually need, what you're going to achieve, and does it make sense, right? So that was our core objective while we migrated from one. We did have a platform while we migrated from one platform to another that is more real time and field oriented. That was what we achieved, right? And definitely it has improved the productivity, because without any need for macro management, all of the stakeholders, internal stakeholders, like including the technicians or even the cleaning staff, were aware about what exactly what kind of data is being transmitted across the organization, of what value they are bringing in, right? And their SOPs, their guidelines, their performances were all transparent, which in fact nurtured a healthy competition among the team itself, because now their performances are clearly seen, and how their zones are doing. What about the rest of the zones? Oh, so we are in pass, so we are the top performers right now. Then that will, so that was a self-motivating thing happening among the team members itself. And yeah, the most important aspect was the end users, or our tenants, or our clients. They did not feel a difference due to the lockdown in any of these services. And I'm so privileged. I'm so happy to hear from several of our tenants, several of our end users, saying that they were like, did you really shut down your offices, or did you go through, because they did not feel any difference. Everything was, it was like pretty seamless. So that was I would say that was the biggest achievement I had as a service provider, especially during these tough times when most of the companies were struggling. And I am 100% sure that all of these companies have very talented people with them, but what I believe could be lacking was the right kind of tools that they could use during a situation like this.
Right. And I'm sure, Mr. Prabhu, it would have been a lot simpler, but yet a little different for you as well, especially, being in this industry for so long. How has that kind of, worked out for you?
Yeah. So when it comes to the outcome of all these digitization and data-driven operations, right? What you get is operational data, and the operational data enables real-time visibility, like how Sumit explained. Where if you look at, it is very similar to, say, an e-commerce industry today, where when you order, right from where it is manufactured, it is shipped, and you'll have visibility into until it reaches the customer place and payment is made. Okay. Very similar to even a food delivery today. The moment you order from kitchen to your place, everything is visible. So why can't real estate have that kind of visibility? And if they get that kind of visibility, the amount of value that is being created is huge, because the real estate operations is far bigger market than what we are talking about, the other markets. So also the operational data, other key aspect is longer term. The acquiring operational data helps you to learn from the past. The moment you have 2-3 years of data about success, mistakes, you are learning from the past, and then you can also use that to predict future challenges. Okay, what could be the staffing you need? What could be the energy utilization next year, because your equipments are aging already. Okay, so these are something which are like tremendous business value that you can get out of using a proper data driven operations. So the final outcome of this is broadly two things. One is becoming operationally efficient by making your workforce more efficient, by reducing your energy consumption, by improving your asset performance. And next one is you can improve your tenant experience, where you can massively reduce breakages, failures, downtimes, and that basically impacts the satisfaction of the tenant. Plus, you can also reduce situations like the rooms are either too hot or too cold. All of these can be controlled. Okay? So that is what your data-driven operation enables. One, operational efficiency. Number two is keeping the occupants, tenants happier, comfortable.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Prabhu. Now, moving on, as I said earlier, it's all about becoming a focus on, the tenant customer experience. So, Mr. Sumith, I want to ask you, why do you feel that FM companies now need to really start paying more attention and focusing on this whole tenant customer experience?
Well, not just FM companies, I believe all businesses have to do that, especially now, because that would probably define their existence and sustainability. Because if the tenants are happy, if the tenants need us, if the customers need us, they would they would tell that. I mean, if we especially during these times, the end users, the tenants, the customers, the visitors, everybody would rely on those organizations that are trustworthy, that are capable to sustain, to operate, to continue operating during these tougher times. Because it is not easy, believe me, it is not easy to ensure that to have a solid supply chain, solid vendors network, solid service personnel who are available to be deployed at the field, financial capabilities, other infrastructure such as our digital tools and everything else. So especially during these days, only those companies, I come across unfortunate news about many smaller organizations or smaller businesses shutting down because they are unable to sustain due to these uncertain things, because they do not have the capabilities to handle something as big as this. Now, when we have all these tools, or when we have all these facilities with us that could be utilized for the sustainability of the business, we still need to make sure that the most important, the most critical one is also there. That is the tenants' need for us. If the tenants need us, if the customers need us, that's when we'll be in the market. So even though we might have created a need at the beginning during the normal times, okay, we need to maintain that need way forward. Despite of what pandemic is happening around, whatever is happening, it doesn't really matter. So customers or tenants might feel that, okay, this company could be trusted, this company could handle our requirements no matter what. And that's a very unique benchmark to be looked at all the time, and we need to continuously improve to achieve that on a daily basis. I'm not saying, I'm not exaggerating it. It is a reality, because especially in the FM industry, no day is similar. We have different requirements on a daily basis, and every time we have to make sure that we meet or exceed our end users or tenants or clients' expectations. And if we do not do that, especially now, that is going to be a tough call, not just for us, for any company, right? And as I mentioned earlier, they should not feel a difference despite of what is happening around. The services could go on, the facilities should look as they used to look, there should not be any hiccups on the operations. And that's where they understand that these guys are really good, right? And that gives them a confidence to stick on to us, to continue with us, to sustain the relation with us, because they will not want to try out a new service provider or an untested service provider, especially during times like this, right? And obviously, that for every businesses, for every aspects of the industries, the requirements of the tenants or the clients or the end users keep evolving. We cannot confine it to a specific thing. So we have to be ahead of that all the time, right? So even before the tenants or the end users think about something that needs to be there, we would have already done our homework. We would have already reached there, prepared a formula, and delivered it to them, so that they, even before they can think about it, we could have already achieved it. So this is what I believe that will ensure the sustainability of almost every business, especially in the FM industry. So like Prabhu said earlier, the procurement process, the standard procurement process so far was who is the lowest bidder, what is his standard capabilities. Okay, let's give the contract to him. That was the standard cliche process so far. But now that trend is changing, because now the investors or the clients understood that if we rely on these kind of service providers, we are going to have a serious issue with our return on investments, especially during situations like this. So whatever they could have estimated to save in terms of money, could have, that I cannot say, because I know certain people, certain industrial professionals who has come across those kind of experiences on the client side as well as on the contracted side, and those are not really nice to discuss. So I believe that is a trend in the industry as of now, and yes, making sure that the customer is happy could be the vital thing that will sustain the businesses way forward, especially now.
And Mr. Prabhu, you've always been that kind of a facilitator, like, providing those platforms that eases this entire relationship. So what is your take on that? Have you seen this kind of a change, and, why you feel it's important for FM companies to focus on?
Yes. So if you look at tenant and the customer experience in real estate, so that has been a focus area, particularly in last, say, 3-5 years globally. So some of the validations or the emergence of co-working as a new business, where companies like WeWork came in, they changed the way offices are expected to be, even for other regular offices. Similarly, on the consumer side, things like smart homes. So that is another example of tenant experience. But these were all mostly into sort of luxury, comfort driven tenant experience. But post pandemic, two things have happened. One is the tenant experience has become sort of a very, very mandatory thing, and it has shifted more towards fundamental things like health, wellness, comfort, air quality. So these are the ones that are looked at as tenant experience today. Like, how do you reduce wastages in terms of time, like waiting for elevators or waiting for a visitor to be signed in. So these are more fundamental things that are becoming part of the tenant experience. So that is one shift we have seen after the pandemic. And also what has happened is, one, there is stress on real estate owners when it comes to the rentals today. Plus the occupancy levels are also slightly coming down, not slightly, in some cases at a very high level. That puts a focus on how can you retain your tenants, one, and how can you make them happier, how can you make them come back and occupy, whether it is a mall or a restaurant or an office, so that you are ensured of your business continuity. Okay? So these factors make tenant experience a critical part post pandemic. And that also opens up the opportunity for the FM companies. Again, I go back to my previous point where FMs can become strategic partners rather than commodity vendors. Okay? Because real estate owners, they don't have time, bandwidth to come up and build these tenant experience, whatever strategies, tools, and processes. So they are going to rely on FM companies. Can you be a value creator for me? And can you come and positively impact my rent collections, my tenant, reducing my tenant churn, where you can come and execute strategies that will make our tenant happier in terms of lesser problems, in terms of confidence, comfort, health, wellness. And there is, I'm sure in the next couple of years, we are going to see a lot of innovation from FM companies where they move beyond your regular hard services, soft services, and then start focusing on employee wellness, aspects like that.
Right. Of course, now we come to our final question. We're talking about the future. So, Mr. Sumith, what according to you is the role of FM in the future? Do you think that it's time for FM to be more, as Mr. Prabhu said, more of a strategic partner than a service provider to their clients?
Oh yes. Because unlike the conventional, FM's evolution, if you look at the last 20 years or so, FM's evolution was very tremendous. Like, it started off as even the name facilities management is not very old. It's relatively a new term. Previously, it was like service industry or like services industry or something like that. Yeah. So it evolved from a mere maintenance service element to an integrated overall services management. So from a field level, so I could say that the FM industry has evolved from a fundamental field level to a much higher management overall strategic level, which is closer to the investors or the clients. Okay, so exactly like how Prabhu said, as a strategic partner, because when you have a built environment, when you invest on a facility and expect a return on investment, then you need to make sure that that facility is functioning at the best, and all the expenses, all the associated expenses to ensure the upkeep of the facility based on the expectations of the end users are in a very controlled, efficient manner. So collectively, that could give the investor the best return from every facility. Mm-hmm. And the construction industry, as you know, that the construction industry has always their ups and downs, different designs, different ways of construction, different workmanship. It doesn't really matter what it was while the building was constructed. Once it gets handed over and once the end users start using it, it is the FM companies, or if it is the FM service providers, who need to make sure that the end users does not feel the difference of a standard of a constructed building, right? I mean, they have to have an expectation, and that expectation has to be met. They really do not want to know who constructed it, or what was the standard of construction, or these kind of elements. So from a basic field service division to an overall integrated facilities management strategic partner, FM has evolved quite a lot, even before the pandemic. And the pandemic was, I think, icing on the cake, because that was the real test for the FM professionals, where they could have, really struggled. But surprisingly, I'm really proud to say, being one of the FM professionals in the industry, surprisingly, all of them stepped up to the occasion, and all of them really took that as a learning curve to learn from all these agilities. Because the more you face these kind of challenges, the better you will become. Now, I'm sure that almost all FM professionals in the industry have gone times they have been working so far. And exactly, so that speed, so that learning in a very short span of time, on a real-time basis, with a lot of risks on board, is amazing, and you cannot get that from a university or a classroom environment. And that makes those FM professionals who were at the field during these pandemic times to be one of the best, or the pioneers of the next step of evolution of FM industry. Because whoever comes after this could learn from these people who have learned it the hard way, right? And exactly these elements make sure that FM industry is one of the most promising industries to look forward, especially with the help of all this digitization and data-driven analysis that is happening. And like Prabhu said, when you collect the data for a longer period of time, because obviously the built environment, any buildings that are being constructed are not for a year or so. We are looking at an average lifespan of 30 to 40 years in this climate, or in this part of the world, at least. So if the investor is investing on a property for 30 to 40 to 50 years, definitely the collection of these data over a period of time is very important to ensure that every year ahead, we improvise the services from what we learned and what we are predicting, right? So yes, that is the future of FM, because it's a very fast-paced industry where it is continuously evolving, and the pandemic has aggravated that evolution. And I'm sure that how Prabhu said, there will be a lot of new innovations in the upcoming years, because it is still in the warm stage. Like, people are constantly innovating and bringing in new solutions on board. So the next, like maybe a couple of years, would be very interesting to see a lot of new innovations coming on board.
Right. I'm sure, when I've seen the pandemic has definitely forced the industry to think outside the box, which they were kind of hesitant before, but now they have, it was more like they were pushed into
There is
it,
no
and
choice.
yeah, and such amazing
You have
things
only
came
one
out of
direction to
it.
go.
Yeah, and such
Yeah, you have
amazing
only
things.
one direction. Yes.
And we saw some very good standards also being set in the industry for something, as you said, for the future generations to fall back on. But Mr. Prabhu, what do you think? Where do you see the industry headed now in the coming years?
Yeah. Yes, like as Sumit said, one is there is going to be fundamental shift in the way real estate is getting operated from now on, triggered by the pandemic. And a lot of them are going to be positive. Like there is more focus on operational efficiency, things like sustainability, tenant experience. I've been in talks for the last 4 or 5 years, but when it comes to real investment commit from customers, it has been really slow. But all of that are becoming critical now. They are like business critical. And number two is the appetite for real estate owners to take risk, to try new innovation, is more now after the pandemic, because their business is under stress. And one, they have to safeguard their existing tenants. They have to maximize their profit from existing buildings, which means they have to reduce all the operational expense. So all of this that have been going on for last few years about sustainability, efficiency, all of that are coming into forefront. One, and again, it is not like FM industry was slow or they were not innovating. They were operating under constraint of, like I said, lowest bidder, or the model itself is the contract is anywhere between 2 to 4 years. Then they go and replace that vendor. Now those things are going to change. So they're going to be more trust, more relationship driven thing. So this is the huge shift that will help the FM industry to become a more value driven player than cost driven player. So that is one point I want to make. Second one is, if you look at last couple of decades, the FM companies that have grown scale, usually that has been driven by their ability to hire more people, upskill those workforce, and also sort of establishing standards. This is what, whoever did this well, whoever hired more people, trained them, upskilled them, go and deployed them, they grew from say 1,000 employee FM company to 20,000. So this is what drove that. But if you look at next 10 years, what will drive the growth of FM is not only this, it is going to be like tech driven, like again, like how an industry like traditional industry like car, cabs, your taxi industry has changed, or the food delivery industry has changed. Such a level of shift is going to happen in FM, driven by technology. It is not just one technology, but generally how can you bring in innovation, efficiency, new services with the help of technology. Whoever is going to grab this, adapt to this, and strategically bring these things, those FM companies are the one who are going to massively grow from now on.
I think on that note, we need to conclude this conversation. So thank you so much, Mr. Prabhu and Mr. Sumith.
Thank you, Allu.
Thank you again for taking time out for us.
It was amazing to discuss all these elements with you guys. Thank you.
Definitely. But that doesn't end here right now. So do let us know if you have any opinions out there. If you've liked this video, do leave your comment in the comment section. And of course, if you like this video, give us a thumbs up, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel. So until next time, this is Megha Anthony signing off.
Bye.
Thank you.